Yesterday's report didn't just trend, it detonated across the internet. Claims about Meghan Markle's alleged diva-style demands spread so fast that by the time people finished reading the headline, a denial was already floating around. And that's where things got interesting. Because instead of shutting the story down, the response seemed to raise even more questions. On one side, you've got reports describing extreme control, luxury security, and strict rules. On the other, a source insisting none of it is true. So which version actually makes sense? And why are so many people refusing to let this one go? The original claims painted a picture that was hard to ignore. Reports suggested Meghan wanted total control over a potential UK visit, from how she moved to who could interact with her. Luxury vehicles, intense security, restricted access, and carefully managed surroundings were all mentioned, with critics calling it excessive and supporters dismissing it as exaggerated. Some details sounded so extreme they almost felt theatrical, which only made the story travel faster. Whether accurate or overstated, the narrative tapped into an existing public debate, and once that happens, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. Not long after the story went viral, a source described as being close to the Sussexes pushed back, calling the entire report a complete fabrication. According to this source, no such demands were ever made, and the claims were supposedly invented out of thin air. On paper, that should have been the end of it. But instead of calming things down, the denial raised eyebrows. It didn't come with a direct statement, an interview, or a clear public rebuttal. And notably, it didn't immediately appear in some of the most Sussex-friendly outlets, which led critics to wonder how firm this denial actually was. Timing matters, especially online. By the time the denial surfaced, the story had already been dissected, clipped, reposted, and debated from every angle. Critics argued that if the claims were truly ridiculous, addressing them head-on would have been easy. A lighthearted response or public appearance could have undercut the narrative instantly. Instead, the quieter approach left space for speculation. Supporters say silence is strategic. Detractors say silence looks like avoidance. And once people start arguing about intent, the facts almost become secondary. One part of the controversy refuses to disappear: how Meghan is addressed in public and private settings. Critics point to past media features where she was announced by her title, even in informal or intimate environments. These moments were included in articles she reportedly approved, which is why some people see them as deliberate rather than accidental. Supporters argue that titles are contextual and often handled by staff or hosts. But to critics, these examples clash with the idea that she doesn't care about hierarchy or formality, fueling claims that the denial doesn't align with past behavior. This story didn't appear in a vacuum. It landed on top of a long-running debate about control, branding, and privacy. Meghan and Harry have consistently spoken about wanting space and boundaries, yet critics argue their public actions often suggest careful image management. To supporters, that's not hypocrisy, it's survival in a hostile media environment. To detractors, it feels like wanting privacy while still controlling every detail of public perception. This tension has followed them for years, which is why even unverified claims gain traction so quickly. Just as the demands debate was peaking, another headline appeared. Meghan's lifestyle brand released a high-end bookmark that reportedly sold out within minutes. The timing immediately raised eyebrows. Fans celebrated it as proof of strong demand, while critics questioned whether the inventory was extremely limited. The product itself became part of the argument, with some calling it overpriced and underwhelming, while others defended it as on-brand and intentional. Whether coincidence or strategy, the sellout added fuel to an already burning conversation. Social media didn't hold back. Comment sections filled with sarcasm, disbelief, and outright mockery, especially over the price point and the speed of the sellout. Some users claimed it looked staged, while others accused critics of nitpicking anything associated with her name. As usual, the internet split into camps. What stood out wasn't just the criticism, but how quickly the product discussion merged with the diva demands narrative, creating a broader story about authenticity, image control, and public trust. Amid the backlash, supporters stepped in to call out what they see as unfair targeting. They argue that no other public figure gets this level of scrutiny over routine branding decisions. From their perspective, every move Meghan makes is interpreted in the worst possible light, regardless of evidence. They point out that sellouts don't require massive inventory to be legitimate and that anonymous sources are a weak foundation for outrage. To them, this is less about demands and more about a media cycle that refuses to move on. One detail that keeps coming up is the reliance on unnamed insiders. Anonymous sources can protect privacy, but they also invite doubt. Critics question who these sources are, what their motives might be, and why their claims should be trusted. Supporters counter that anonymous sourcing is standard in celebrity reporting. Still, when both accusations and denials come from unnamed voices, it creates a fog where perception often outweighs proof, and that fog is where speculation thrives. The reason this story keeps resurfacing isn't just about what was claimed, it's about what it represents. For critics, it reinforces a long-held belief about entitlement and control. For supporters, it exemplifies relentless character attacks. Each new development, no matter how small, gets interpreted as confirmation of whichever side people already believe. And when narratives harden like that, even neutral facts struggle to make an impact. A potential UK appearance has become the ultimate test. If it happens, observers will scrutinize everything: security levels, access, behavior, and tone. Critics believe it would either confirm or dismantle the diva narrative overnight. Supporters argue that even a flawless visit would still be spun negatively. Either way, the stakes are high because real-world appearances leave less room for interpretation than anonymous quotes and leaked reports. At this point, the bigger question isn't whether the original claims were accurate, it's whether the reaction says more about Meghan or about the ecosystem surrounding her. Fame, branding, resentment, loyalty, and outrage all collide here. Some see manufactured drama designed to drive clicks. Others see legitimate criticism finally boiling over. And once again, the truth likely lives somewhere in the uncomfortable middle. So where does that leave things? A viral report, a quiet denial, a product sellout, and a public more divided than ever. Until actions replace speculation, neither side is likely to be satisfied. The next appearance, the next release, or the next statement could shift the narrative or deepen it even further. One thing is certain, when it comes to Meghan Markle, nothing is ever just one story. And the internet will be watching every move, waiting to decide what it means next.